What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. I want you to pay absolute attention to what I'm about to say today. You see, from the moment I stepped into primary school all the way until the end of my first year of high school, I was constantly suffocating under the exact same problem we have today. Day after day, year after year, the bullying. Like, it did not matter what I did, it did not matter what I said, and didn't matter how I dressed. I was always that guy, the guy that anyone and everyone in the room felt entirely comfortable making fun of. But let's stop hiding behind our fingers and speak the brutal truth about why this happens. When I was in those early grades, I made the catastrophic mistake that millions of insecure young guys make every single day, acting like a clown. I subconsciously thought to myself, if I can just make them laugh, if I can be funny guy, the jester, then I will finally get the respect and validation from the people around me. From a very young age, that was the exact moment the trap snapped shut. Instead of earning respect, acting like a jester gave everyone a green light to treat me like a joke. They started bullying me ruthlessly, and once you enter that identity, once you labeled as the class clown, it becomes an almost impossible psychological circle to escape. Because I had internalized the identity of a victim, my self-confidence completely collapsed. And guess what happens when you have zero confidence? You walk around with a massive target painted directly on your chest. You become the exact type of guy that the neighborhood gangsters and the school bullies actively look for as prey. And you think acting like a clown is a clever shield, but it's actually a homing beacon for predators. Suddenly, when you notice that your jester routine isn't working and the people around you are making fun of you instead of liking you, you start to feel deeply insecure. And bullies possess a primal animal instinct. The exact second they smell your insecurity, something shifts inside their heads. They notice that your loud, clownish behavior wasn't actual confidence, it was a pathetic mask. They see your true colors, and because they know you are hollow inside, they start bullying you even harder. It got so bad for me, the psychological misery was so overwhelming that at one point I seriously wanted to legally change my last name and one of my first names. I was so desperate to escape the abuse that I convinced myself I was being bullied solely because of the literal meaning of my names. That is how deep the rot goes. That is how badly your mind works when you are under constant siege. But today I'm going to give you the exact 2 steps I used to break the target, reclaim my dignity, and become entirely untouchable. I mean, almost. Let's dig deeper. So the first thing I had to do in order to escape this living misery was to completely leave the group of clowns I hung out with. Listen to me very carefully. If your life is anything like how mine used to be, you aren't just getting bullied by the tough guys in school, you are getting actively bullied by your own friend group. And I remember exactly when I moved out from my old primary school to transfer to a new school. This was a combined primary and middle school located right close to the city center. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a clean slate. But of course, because I hadn't changed my internal blueprint, I arrived at that school and immediately started acting like a clown all over again. And within the first few months of the 3rd grade, I managed to integrate myself into a specific group of kids. And let's be real about who these kids were. They were completely clowns. Their entire dynamic consisted of making fun of each other, playing stupid pranks, and physically slapping each other around for cheap laughs. Because of their chaotic low-value behavior, that group was undisputedly the most disrespected, hated group in the entire class. They were highly introverted, and the only things they truly cared about or liked doing was playing video games non-stop, eating toxic junk food, and tearing each other down under the guise of friendship. And bro, the moment I entered that group of friends, I was the exact moment I completely lost any shred of respect from the more masculine dominant colleagues around me in the classroom. They looked at our group and saw a bunch of weak losers. But here's the ultimate kick in the teeth. Even the clown group I was in still bullied me. To the rest of the class, my friends were the jesters. But within that circle, for them, I was the joke. I was a clone for the clowns, a sub-clone. And trust me, when I tell you this, that was the absolute worst, most agonizing situation in school I have ever experienced. Think about the psychological horror of that position. The single thing I feared the most in this world was to be entirely alone in that classroom, sitting by myself with no one to talk to. So driven by that desperate fear of isolation, I did my absolute best to buy validation from them. And I remember it vividly. One day, a female colleague from that group looked at me and said,
"Give me your food because you know we are friends."
She said it with a smirk on her face. She loved making fun of me, never treated me seriously for a single second, yet I handed over my food just to feel included. Tolerated that soul-crushing treatment all the way until the 8th grade finally came around. And in the 8th grade, something finally snapped inside me. I made the hard, conscious decision to stop staying with that toxic group. I cut them off. I walked into classroom, sat at my desk, and just stayed completely peaceful and quiet by myself. And I thought to myself, if I just stop being a clown like them, maybe the bullying will finally stop. And you know what? The overt bullying actually reduced a bit, because I stopped acting like an idiot. A more dominant masculine group of guys in my classroom noticed the change and kinda integrated me a little bit into their circle. But it was not a full integration, because my reputation from the past years was completely ruined. And suddenly, when the old group of clowns saw me moving up, they tried their hardest to pull me back down and reintegrated me in their low value circle. But I fought the urge. I did my absolute best to stay as little as humanly possible with them. But even without that group dragging me down, I was still a target. I was still getting bullied by others because of the severe lack of internal confidence I had built up during those dark years. I had another group of introvert friends outside of school, but the dynamic was the exact same. When you get bullied and you're disrespected even by your so-called friend, you build a devastating script inside your head. You convince yourself that you are simply not meant for respect, telling yourself that you are just born a jester, and the only thing you truly deserve in this life is to get disrespected from all angles. And that is exactly what I thought about myself back then. So what should you do if you are sitting in the exact position right now? I'm going to tell you exactly what to do, but let's be completely honest with each other. You probably won't do it because you are completely frightened. You are terrified of being alone. But if you want to save your life, you must find a completely new group of friends. The best, most surgical way of doing this is to change the baseline activities your current friends are doing. Let's expose your current friend group right now. What is your primary activity when you guys hang out? It's playing video games, sitting on Discord, eating trash food, wasting your life. You must realize that the number one foundational reason you are still friends with those people is not loyalty. It is because of the video games and the mutual destructive habits you share. You are just trauma bonding over mediocrity. Even though I had gotten rid of that group of school clowns and stopped being a jester myself, I was still a massive video game addict during that period of time. I was barely treated any better by society because I was still vibrating at a low addictive frequency. Nothing truly shifted in my life until I finally completely got rid of that outside group of introverts when I was in the 10th grade. Until you cut the umbilical cord of bad habits, nothing changes. And look, before we dive into the massive physical step that changes everything, I need you to do me a quick favor. Hit the like and subscribe button to the channel right now. It helps me a lot. Thanks. Now, hear me out. You might have to endure a lonely period of time. When you drop your toxic friends and quit video games, your social circle drop to zero. Accept it, embrace the silence, because during that lonely period, your only job is to get better through productive, healthy habits. As long as you keep hanging out less and less every time with that toxic group, you'll start building a new aura. And yes, when you return to school and make strong eye contact with them, there will be gossips about you, they will talk shit behind your back because they hate seeing someone escape the bucket of crabs. It is completely normal. Ignore the comments, keep your head high and let them talk, because their comments are about to completely hit a wall once you apply the step number 2. And step number 2 is to completely erasing bullying from your existence. You must become physically imposing. Let me take you back to the 8th grade to illustrate exactly how human biology and dominance hierarchies work. I had a classmate at the time who was heavily involved in sports and went to the gym consistently. Let's call him Eric. Now, in that same class, there was a guy who was my absolute biggest, most ruthlessly bully. Let's call him Andrew. And this Andrew wasn't actually physically imposing at all, but he still managed to dominate and bully me completely because he easily imposed himself in front of my weak, slouching, clownish posture. But look at how Andrew interacted with Eric. Eric was broad, strong, physically imposing and walked with natural masculine confidence. Because of that raw physical presence, Andrew never had the courage to make fun of Eric, not even once. It went even deeper than that. I remember moments when Eric would literally punch Andrew right in his shoulder as a joke or a test of dominance. And Andrew, the big scary bully who made my life a living hell, will sit there, take the hit and say absolutely nothing except a quiet weak
Bro, please stop.
without even raising his voice. Why is that? Why did the biggest predator in the classroom instantly turn into a submissive coward in front of Eric? Because of the simple undeniable fact that Eric had a spine, he stood tall and he was significantly more physically imposing than Andrew. If the number 1 bully of my entire class didn't have a single ounce of courage to even raise his voice in front of a strong man, who the hell from that entire middle school would have ever liked to make fun of Eric? No one. He was completely insulated from abuse because of his physical capability and confidence. Now, I already know the weak excuse that some of you are preparing to type in the comments right now. You are going to say like,
Yeah, bro, but that's a stupid point because there will always be someone out there who is bigger, meaner and stronger than you.
which I agree, you are absolutely right. There is always a bigger fish, but let me ask you a question based on statistical reality. Wouldn't it be infinitely better if we could drastically reduce the number of potential predators by becoming stronger and more physically capable than 95% of the population? Let's look at the world objectively. Which category of men gets targeted, harassed and bullied the most? Is it the bottom 5% of physically weak, out of shape, slouching men? Or is it the top 5% of dense, muscular, athletic men? I think you can know the answer. Predators do not look for hard fight, they look for an easy meal. And believe me when I tell you this, getting into that top 5% of physical capability is much easier than you think. The stronger you get, the lower your statistical chances of encountering someone who can physically bully you. When you combine a physical imposing physique with the consistent practice of a martial art, boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, everything changes. The people around you can sense the shift. They instinctively know that if they choose to mess with you, regardless of how strong they think they are, it will not be an easy joke. It will be a mutual ticket to the hospital. Let's pick the raw, unfiltered truth of the role. If you do not apply a harsh physical or psychological correction to someone who attempts to bully you, what on earth is stopping him from continuing? Nothing. If there are no consequences for his actions, he will keep treating you like a punching bag forever. I'm not standing here telling you to go out and be a violent psycho. I'm telling you to become entirely capable of violence so that you never have to use it. True peace only comes to men who have weapons but choose to keep keep them sheeted. And let me show you how this played out in my own life as I grew up. When I finally moved away from a completely different high school, everything changed on the surface. I wasn't the pathetic class clown I used to be, and because I had stopped the gesture routine, the overt aggressive bullying stopped entirely. But I wasn't free yet. When I entered the 10th grade, I found myself completely ignored by almost all of my colleagues. It was what I like to call a hidden bully. There was no verbal abuse, no emotional targeting, and no physical fighting, but there was an absolute wall of isolation. Why? Because my internal confidence was still completely at the ground level based on the years of trauma and disrespect I had endured from my old classmates. I did not know how to execute normal social interactions without resorting to being a clown. For example, when my new high school colleagues genuinely wanted to integrate me into their social groups, my internal insecurity will flare up and I will decline their invitations, retreating into my shell. And because of that defensive isolation, and because of the fact that I looked incredibly skinny, frail and weak, I wasn't treated well at all, especially by the girls in my class. But the absolute second I dedicated myself to the iron, the moment I built a physically imposing muscular physique and corrected my posture, the entire environment flipped. The physical transformation had an immediate profound impact on how society treated me. The men started speaking with a little more respect, and the hidden bullying completely evaporated into thin air, almost. Your body is the outer reflection of your inner boundaries. Build a strong castle and people will stop trying to invade it. Look, we can sit here all day long and comfort ourselves by saying we were just the helpless victims of bullying for many years. I honestly hate that word victim. It implies you have no power. It could easily sit in this chair and blame absolutely everyone else for my childhood misery. I could blame my mother because of the fatherlessness reality I grew up in. I could blame the school teachers for entirely failing to do their jobs and protect the students. I could blame my cruel, toxic classmates for being mean, abusive individuals. Or I could blame the entire universe, but absolutely nothing will change. That is the most brutal, heavy truth you will ever hear on this channel. Until you look in the mirror and realize that your life is entirely your fault, nothing will ever change. You can change your school, you can change your classroom, you can run away to another city, you can run to the principal's office, or you can wait for some useless anti-bullying campaign to take effect. It will be for absolutely nothing. The bully will not stop. As long as you walk around carrying the internal blueprint of a target, the world will inevitably treat you like one. It is a biological law. This cycle only ends the exact second you decide that you must change. Drop the clowns, hit the weights, build your confidence from the ground up, and take absolute control of your destiny. So yeah, I hope I could make your life at least 1% better, and see you the next time.